Neo's Fox by Vincent Darkfire, Chapter 3. Naruto was awakened by something sitting on his chest. He opened his garnet eyes and saw Neo giving him her ever-present smirk. Neo's messy pink hair hanging over the right side of her face, her brown hair lazily flowing over her shoulder, the silent girl slowly leaning down, her heterochromatic eyes half lighted and gave him sensitive ears a lick. Naruto's face lit up in a vivid red blush, and now he was very awake. Around the ballroom, other initiates were waking up, still sound asleep. Near them lay Ruby, Yang, Blake, Whis, and a girl with long red hair. Naruto began to rise, even with Neo on his chest, to begin his day. Neo, in a perfect display of flexibility, twisted around Naruto's body to fit on his shoulder as he got up from the simple bedroll slash sleeping bag given to them by one of the supplies distributors. Breck. Neo struggled to speak. Neo, let's go get some breakfast. And Naruto said, leaning down to grab his bedroll while Neo stretched out across his back. The black fox had handed Neo his rolled up coat as he rolled his bedroll up and he stood straight. Naruto stretched hard, arcing his back, locking his arms and legs straight while raising his arms. The black-clad fox was sure not to disturb the nested Neo too much. Then he uttered a single word, almost a command, "Coat." With that, Neo unfurled the legendary black coat, laying it over Naruto's shoulder and around her waist. The silky inner sleeve caressing Naruto's rippling muscles as he slid his arm through it. Using his left hand, and Naruto placed his coat closed up to his chest, using the opening to rest his right in. Neo. Neo put Naruto's head. Check. Badass cloak. Naruto shrugged the coat to coax it into a better fit. Check. Bedroll. Neo held the bedroll in front of her so Naruto can see it. Check. Okay, let's go. Naruto said as he spun on his heels towards the door. On the way out, Neo tossed the bedroll into the open supply room. Neo's smirk grew mirthfully as she encroached upon the heavily lands of breakfast. Naruto, having followed his nose and only his nose, knocked into someone else looking for the cafeteria. A human girl with orange hair, her purple eyes timidly peered out from under her brow. Sorry. She startled a little at Naruto's voice. The orangeette looked between Naruto's extended palm to his piercing ruby eyes and back, quickly taking his hand. She yelped a little when Naruto suddenly yanked her upright. Sorry. Naruto apologized for scaring her. I'm Naruto. He offered his hand. She introduced herself. Rain Backs. As she took Naruto's hand, it's a pleasure, she smirked. Well, she jumped back when she saw a pair of pink eyes appear before her. As she jumped back, she saw a fair girl with brown and pink hair with white highlights. From the smirk, she seemed pleased to have frightened her. Neo. Naruto laughed as he gestured to the smirking girl. My girlfriend. I rubbed his neck, more out of habit than embarrassment. Ah, she said shortly in understanding. Hello, Neil. Rain smiled as she smoothed any wrinkles in her clothes. Her jump gave her. It seems we were in a rush and we collided. Her purple eyes intoned implied a question. Yeah. I was following my nose. You see, I just didn't notice you along the way to the cafeteria. Naruto rubbed his neck again, this time embarrassed, his grin almost stupid. Well, I suppose the recompense you should guide me there. Rain said simply, almost a command. Almost. Well, since you said please, Naruto teased. Sure, I'll take you to the cafeteria. Just keep up. Naruto again focused on the hypnotic smell of pancakes and warm forever fall syrup. Rain had trouble keeping pace for a bit. It took more than a moment to fall into step with the fleet-footed fox. As he turned a corner, Rain's keen eye saw that Naruto's eyes were closed. When the pair got close enough for Rain's nose to follow the delicious scent of sweet, sweet nourishment, she sped up enough to playfully skip besides Naruto's quick walk. As they round a corner, a quiet girl with black hair easily walked beside Naruto, her graceful stride disturbing not a single hair about her. Rain couldn't help but notice that she too walked with her eyes closed. The trio of students approached the doors to the cafeteria at once, violently flinging them open, breaking their hinges, and all at once stopped in their tracks, their senses all assaulted with the tidal wave of smell that erupted over them from within the cafeteria. Neo's smirk grew predatory as she saw the gigantic stacks of pancakes at the buffet. As Naruto passed the table, Neo jumped off his shoulder and claimed a couple of corner seats for them, swinging her legs patiently, waiting for Naruto to come back with their trays. Naruto had no trouble at all choosing what to put on their breakfast trays, taking a generous 5 pancakes for each of them, a small bowl full of what looks like grape jello. Naruto picked out a couple of apples and gave Neo an orange. When he got to the end of the buffet line, he found a small heated tank of forever fall syrup and a cooler full of light green and white milk cartons. The color had a sign taped to it saying limit 2 per person, but like the bad boy he is, Naruto stuffed his pockets full of the small cardboard milk containers, both chocolate milk and normal 2%, successfully pilfering a grand total of 20 or so milk cartons. Nonchalantly walking back to the table Neo had chosen for them, she sat the trays down and took out some milk for them, giving a carton of chocolate milk for his sweet, loving girlfriend, along with a normal carton. Here you go, Neo. Now drink up while I cut up your pancakes. Naruto smiled at her while she chugged through her chocolate milk before he even grabbed the knife. The duo was ignorant of the others pouring into the cafeteria, as Ruby, Whis, Blake, and Yang all watched the scene before them. Neo, being as small as she was, looked like a little girl waiting for her daddy to cut up her breakfast, happily sipping from a carton of milk and kicking her feet back and forth. Naruto, on the other hand, looked almost fatherly as he was smiling as he cut Neo's breakfast for her, even going so far as to peel her orange for her. After passing it back, Neo's gentle eyes turned predatory as she practically threw the milk aside and tore into her syrup-bogged pancakes. The group of 4 girls was so astonished by what they saw, they didn't even notice the two walking behind them until the girls started talking really excitedly. What if we have a signal? The 4 looked at them and saw the girl buzzing around the boy in green, talking 100 miles an hour. A secret signal. The girl gasped. Ooh, can you imitate a sloth? Nora, the boy in green said, sounding somewhere between exhausted and annoyed. Yes, one? The girl was already done with her selection, a gargantuan stack of pancakes, 20, maybe 30. She was just walking in front of the boy, keeping him company. I don't think sloths make a lot of noise, he said shortly as he gathered his modest breakfast. Actually, it's almost exactly what Naruto chose. The girl thought about that momentarily. That's why it's perfect, she exclaimed. People won't know we're working together. They absently sat on Neo's side of Naruto's table. Naruto picked Naruto pipe in. Nora, that's all a really good plan actually, but now Neo and I know it. Naruto looked at the bubbly orange-haired girl with a chess player that just beat his opponent's strategy. Nora looked at the fox across from her and ran. Who told you our plan? Was it Mr. Pancakes? She picked up 3 of her pancakes on her fork. How could you tell others our plan? She sounded playfully hurt. Now I have to eat you, she said, as in a very strange combination of creepy and cheery tones. Nora then stuffed the 3 pancakes in her mouth and proceeded to crush them to death, killing Mr. Pancake. Naruto just shook his head at the act of the orange net and turned to his food. As he looked at the spread before him, he realized something's missing. Then it hit him. He retracted his hand into his sleeve, and when he pushed it back through, he was holding a coffee mug, normal white, but with an orange red fox print on the side and black musical notes scrolled along the top rim. As he got up to fill his mug, some of his other acquaintances took their seats at his table. Moments later, when Naruto returned, the fox-eared faunus reclaimed his seat across from his glorious, beautiful Neo. He took a sip like he normally does and set his mug down to prepare to eat. But as he took his fork and knife in hand, he again felt that something was off. Looking around his spread, he saw everything was as he liked it. So what could be his thoughts was interrupted when he looked up. Everyone was staring at him, shocked expressions on all of them. Well, what passed for shock as far as Blake and Ran, at least? What? He said nervously, his tail flitting back and forth. It was just like, Ruby stammered, still come over by shock. Professor, we mumbled, Ospen. Nora explained, her shock, confused. Huh? Naruto hummed, is still confused at their strange behavior. You just sipped your drink exactly like Professor Ospen, Naruto. We said shortly. Guys, seriously, what about it? Naruto challenged, kinda fretful of the idea that they figured out his relation to the headmaster. The group thought about it for a moment, noticing the lack of logic behind the surprise, and collectively shook their heads. Nothing. They all sighed. Weirdos. Naruto sighed in return, returning to his as of yet untouched breakfast. Seemingly out of nowhere, Naruto felt a rush of wind and heard a soft giggle behind him. Ruby. He counted. Ruby looked at the fox beside her, observing his orange-red tail sway softly behind him. The black tip curled slightly upwards, denying the floor its soft touch. Mesmerized, Ruby began to reach out towards it when her hand was only moments from touching the soft pelt of the fox. The black-haired girl let out a yip of surprise and sharply recoiled. Something had slapped her hand. The red hooded girl looked suspiciously at Nia, who smiled gleefully back at her. Naruto watched the whole thing go down, chuckling softly at Neo's shenanigans. Naruto stabbed his fork through a section of all 5 pancakes and began cutting, his mouth watering in preparations to receive the sweet, sweet cake. Just as he was about to stuff his face whole with the syrup-logged pancakes, someone pushed his back, jolting his gingerly held fork out of his hand, sending the cut piece of deliciousness spattered onto his tray. Feeling beaten, he let out a defeated sigh. Hey, Foxy, I had an amazing dream last night. A voice purred into his ear. Naruto could feel the hot, damp air on his sensitive fox ear and felt his cheeks heat up. Yang. Naruto thought, then realized what was pressing into his back, and he had to cover his nose to prevent himself from repainting the table. I dreamt I was in a hot tub. You were there too, and we were just about to. Yang was cut short when she felt herself being pushed away. The blonde looked up to see Nail was sitting on her fox's shoulder, smirking down at her and swinging her legs gently across Naruto's back, again jostling his fork out of his hand, once again denying him his first bite. Blake looked over to Naruto as he took a calm sip from his mug. Sitting across from him, the sly cat began to rub his leg from hers with hers. Naruto looked at Blake, blushing, a look Neo didn't miss. Blake continued to rub the fox's leg until she saw a little red dot on the table. It moved quickly from side to side, attracting her attention even more. The black cat swiftly moved her hand over the dot, trying to scratch at it, only to find that it had moved. Cat instincts took command, and the fawness situated to chase the little red dot about the table. Then the dot shot down the table, and Blake, the cat that she is, threw herself on the table, scrawling after the dot. This made Naruto again lose his fork and yet again denied his first bite. Neo jumped off Naruto's shoulders and walked over the table, following Blake, still chasing the dot. She was surprised when the dot disappeared. Confused, she looked around, then back to the table. There she saw Neo posing at the edge of it, her hips off to one side, one leg locked straight and the other bent, one hand on her hips, the other held before her, gently waving something dangling from a keychain. Is that a laser pointer? She inwardly hissed. Blake ducked into a pouncing stance as she faced Neo like she was going to tackle the little. The bell rang for a moment, then the loudspeaker crackled. Students, this is Professor Goodwitch. All initiates, please retrieve your battle gear from the locker rooms. Initiation begins in 1 hour. Prepare well. Oh, come on! Everyone heard Naruto scream at the other end of the table, his pancake cut up, but none of it eaten. Time skip. Naruto still grumbled about his lack of breakfast, but on his battle jacket, black duster. Not just any duster, the inside was lined with steel plates reinforced by sapphire wire, all galvanized by hardonic essence. Its left sleeve was ripped off, and black pseudo-beowulf fur covered the left half of the duster's chest. On the right, it had a small, dark, blood-red plasteel scales covered his vital organs and his right arm, with a single trapezoidal plate covering the back of his hand and a first finger joint. Naruto wore an elbow-length black glove woven from the purest dust, spun with the highest grade sapphire wire. He wore pants woven from the same material as his left glove, only thicker. Both his thighs adorned with hardonic sapphire wire holsters. Naruto had also clasped on plasteel greaves of the same color as his right chest that covered from just above his ankle to mid knee. The well-worn and broken-in combat boots that adorned his feet had been layered in what looked like a blood-red plasteel scales. The most frightening thing about his battle gear, despite how much pieces it has, it is completely silent. No matter how much he moves or jostles, the scales will never click or chime. Naruto stands from the bench across and looks past the vast collections full of dust vials mounted on the inside of the door into his locker. Mounted on the left side of the large blue-gray locker was a staff. Not just any staff. This staff had an evil-looking black sphere at the base. The opposite end of the staff is adorned with an open-mouthed fox head with a gradually curved 6-foot blade with runes. The fox's head is made from a single carved piece of mahogany. The only blemish on the fox's head is a crack from behind the left ear through the left eye and down to the blade. A line of runes stretches down from the tip of the right ear down the side of the ear through the right eye, and waves down the right side of the blade. The eyes crack, and runes have a subtle glow that match whatever type of dust he's using. Now at rest, the glow was a faint, almost imperceptible light. Shadow Fox, mounted on the back of the locker, was a twin set of single-edged broadswords of runes. Also ran down the flat of both blades. The hilt of one was black ebony. Naruto thought fondly the other hilt a pure white ivory. Naruto smiled at his weapons. The runes on Ivory's blade were void of darkness, as if it allowed nothing to escape. The runes on a body shone with a faint white glow. The brilliant steel of the blade shone with an unnatural red brightness. If one were to look very closely at the guard of each blade, they'd see a very well hidden trigger on the inside of the grip. The dull edge of the blade stopped about 3 inches short of the actual tip of the blade, suddenly jutting inwards about an inch, then continuing up, but the best disguise of the barrel of a gun. Then again, Naruto didn't have that in mind when he designed the gun blades. Naruto gripped the hilt of each blade, holding the usually light blades as if they were part of his body. He gripped each blade tighter, then slammed the dull edge together, perfectly lined up. The two blades became a single great sword. The blade became as blank as the void of ivory runes. The tip of the sword had a 2-inch indentation. The twin barrels of ebony and ivory. Maybe I'll just take my Twilight Sepulchre, he wondered aloud. As always, Neo sat on her fox's shoulders, her pink parasol lazily resting on her own shoulder. The tricolored girl looked at her fox's weapons, amazed at the variety of fighting styles Naruto can use. She adored the violent look of the staff she knew was called the Shadow Fox. However, Neo loved the simple brutality behind ebony, ivory, and Twilight Sepulchre. Neo, Naruto paused to look at his lover. Which weapon should I use? And Neo's eyes, both brown now, met his garnet eyes with an almost evil gleam, her smirk growing into a devious smile. Yeah, I'll just take them all. Naruto released his grip on the Twilight Sepulchre and pulled the claymore-sized sword apart, returning it back to the blades, ebony and ivory. He reached into the bottom of the locker, grabbing the blade holder into the Hardonic sapphire wire holster at his side. Then Naruto proceeded to fill empty slots on his belt holsters and sheaths with small vials of dust for the final touch. Naruto swung a Shadow Fox over his shoulder and into the clasps on the back of his duster. The reactive clasps closed around the shaft of his mighty staff, locking it in place. Naruto, with his gear in place, closed his new empty locker and meandered towards the exit of the locker room. On his path to the exit, the fox overheard Ruby talking with her sister. My dearest sister Yang, are you implying you do not wish to be on the same team as me? Ruby accused. What? No, of course I do. I just thought, I don't know, maybe it would help you break out of your shell? Yang said optimistically. What? I don't need to break out of my shell. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way I put my locker I put my gear in locker 636 yesterday. I would have remembered having to count that high. Why does this have to happen today? John interrupted Ruby, complaining to himself. His sole focus was on his scroll, looking up only every now and then to look at the locker numbers. What he saw when he looked this time, however, made him even more melancholy. John saw his goal walking away from him. John saw Naruto kneel on the perch she made of his shoulder, walk out of the locker room. Naruto to John is everything he wants to be. Naruto got all the girls and is so cool. John let out a depressed sigh. However, it didn't last long as he heard the voice of his angel. He looked around and found Whis talking to some redhead in what looked like old Greek armor. I was thinking maybe we could be on a team together, Whis offered. Well, that sounds grand, the redhead said. She sounded almost like she wasn't as excited as she could be. Great. John watched as a devious, plotting grin spread on his angel's face as she turned away from the redhead. Like greased lightning, he appeared next to his other goal. You know what else is great? Me, John Ark. Nice to meet you. John gave his most charming grin. You again. Weiss just glared at him in disgust. Nice to meet you, John. The redhead tried to interject. Yeah. John literally pushed her aside and continued to advance on Weiss. So Weiss couldn't help overhearing your fondness in me yesterday. John flexed his arm, looking between it and Weiss. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Weiss face palmed. John was a little hurt, but he didn't let it show as he feigned confidence and continued his advance. No need to be embarrassed. John waved his hand in front of him as if to ward something off. So, been hearing rumors about teams, John said in a sing-song voice, rocking on his feet. I was thinking you and me would make a good one. What'd you say? Again, the redhead attempted to get a word in edgewise. Actually, I think teams are comprised of 4 students each, so you don't say. John deadpanned, glancing at an annoyed Weiss. Well, hot stuff. Play your cards right, and maybe you can end up with the winning team. John stepped up to the girl quickly, as if trying to ward off the confrontation. Stepped between them, a hand on both their chests. John, is it? Do you have any idea who it is you're talking to? She turned to face the offending blonde, gesturing to the redhead behind her. Not the slightest, Snow Angel. John leaned in towards Weiss. This, Weiss again gestured to the redhead, is Pyro. Hello again, Pyro waved. Pyro graduated the top of her class at Sanctum. Weiss leered at John. John simply shrugged. Never heard of it, he said, looking bored. She's won the Mistral Regional Tournament for years in a row. A new record. She scoffed at John. The what? John tilted his head. She's on the front of every pumpkin pizza marshmallow flakes box, we said as she waved her arms and crossed them angrily, glancing at Para, then looked at the gasping John. That's you? John said excitedly, pointing at Para like a fanboy. They only do that for star athletes and cartoon characters. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Para looked away shyly. Sadly, the cereal wasn't very good for you. So after hearing all this, do you really think you're in a position to ask her to be on your team? Weist asked with an air of superiority. I guess not, John said, hanging his head down in defeat. Sorry. Actually, John, I think you'd make a great leader. Parya encouraged John, putting a hand on his shoulder. Stop it. John looked at Pyro like an excited puppy. Seriously, stop it. This kind of behavior should not be encouraged, Weiss admonished. Looks like Pyro's on board of Team John. Spots are filling up quick. John got in close to Weiss and said in a more hushed tone, No, I'm not supposed to do this, but maybe I can pull some strings. Find a place for you. What'd you say? John leaned a bit closer as he listed suggestions. All right, that's a bit close. Weiss backed off, putting her hands between them. Pyra, a little help, please. Weiss squeaked. John heard something twirl behind him, making him turn, and as he turned, his confident face quickly turned to fear as Pyra tossed her spear through his hood. The cloth caught the spear and the force of the throw, dragging John along with the spear. John screamed as he hurled towards a wall. The thud of impact and the shivering of metal could be heard throughout the vast locker rooms of Beacon. I'm sorry. Apara waved at the blonde she just nailed to the wall. Would all first-year students please report to Beacon Cliff for initiation again? All first-year students report to Beacon Cliff immediately. The speakers crackled. Weiss and Pyra walked past John. Pyra retrieved her speaker. It was nice meeting you, she cheered. Likewise, John sighed as he slid down the wall to his rear and waited for the